Yo, what's up guys, Extend here, and as you can see, we finally got an Apex. So, let's open it up. Okay, I got this open now. I'm gonna take this out. And as you can see, Asus actually doesn't have the plastic bag like traditional motherboards. And this is the actual board, so let's take it out now. Okay, so as you can see, we got the fan kit here, which is just a fan. I'll show you later. We got a bunch of stuff. And we got the M.2 add-on cards. So this is a DIMM.2, and we'll have to use it, and I'll explain why in a sec. Bunch of SATA, like standoff holders, stuff like that. We also got this, which is supposed to be a USB drive. I want to see what's inside. Let's check it out. This USB drive is pretty cool actually, because as you can see, it splits into two. So in this thing, you got the drivers. So, you don't need to get them off the website. You can download like a specific one. You get utilities here, manual and like special, which is WinRAR. In the second partition, it's just 25 gigabytes, which you can just put whatever you want. So for example, I put BIOSes here, like profiles, stuff like that. So that's pretty handy. So I got everything out of the box. So let me just peel this off. I really don't like a sticker over here. Took the heatsink off, but the layout of the NVMe's in this board on the Apex is actually closer to the Extreme and less close to the Hero. So for example, if you use this NVMe, you don't lose any lanes. So, this is 16. But if you use this NVMe or this, your top PCIe slot becomes X8, which kind of sucks, especially since I'm running it 4090, so it's going to run Gen 4 X8. That's really going to limit the bandwidth. So what they decided to do is to give you this. All right, so essentially what this is you got two more NVMe slots on both sides you can put, and then it just goes here next to the RAM slots, which, is kind of weird since there's 3 slots. Anyways, coming to the main topic of the board is like, as you can see, it has 2 DIMM slots instead of 4. And this is actually better since even with what Asus implemented called nitro pathing, it's not in this board actually, because nitro pathing is only for 4 DIMMs. And just because you have 2 more DIMMs, even though they're not populated, they still generate some electricity or signal, and they result in like signal loss. So that's why 2 DIMM motherboards are the best for overclocking. So I put the PC together, but I forgot to like tell you some stuff. For example, there's like cool switches over here, which are like LN2 mode and like slow mode and stuff like that. And we also got the postcode, and we got the startup button. And I think these are like probes for temperatures and stuff like that. That's for like extreme overclocking. But the thing is, at the bottom, the coolest thing about this motherboard is if you look over here, you have a BIOS switch. So there's literally 2 physical BIOSes on this motherboard. So, if one of them breaks while you update your BIOS or something like that, you always have a backup. So that's really cool. Okay, so I'm finally getting to actually installing the included fan for the RAM, as you can see. And there's 2 like screws here. So like 1 and 2. And those are like holes, as you can see, which just fit like over here, so on the NVMe slot, and like on this heatsink over here. So it's pretty like self-explanatory like where it goes. And also there's this PWM connector here, which is perfectly designed with this. All right, so I put it in nicely, as you can see, the fan. It looks pretty nice besides this cable maybe sticking out a bit, but like a word of advice, if you're planning to install this, put this on before you put the GPU, because that was not comfortable getting to that screw hole. All right, so finally getting to the BIOS, let's go over some stuff here. So as you can see at the right here, there's SP, which is silicon prediction for your CPU. This just predicts how well your CPU is gonna clock. So that's pretty cool. There's also cooler points. This is not reliable since every time you clear the CMOS, it changes. I've had it like 1/50 times. But the cool things are in Extreme Tweaker. So if you go over here, we got AI Overclock Tuner. I don't know why they keep adding AI to everything. It's pretty annoying, but It says what everything does at the bottom, but I'll explain it briefly. So manual is just like nothing. You do everything yourself. Expo 1 is Expo plus some subtimings tweaked. Expo 2 is just Expo with nothing else. Expo tweaked is Expo with all the subtimings tweaked. Then Expo on the fly is something else, I'm not sure. But if we do Expo 1, for example, you can see I have a 8000 kit here. It's MDI and it's 48 gigabytes. And we got ECLK mode here. And we can just set it to asynchronous. So we can do like extra overclocking besides PBO. You know, that doesn't limit us, which is, you know, important to have on this motherboard. And, you know, obviously this motherboard easily does 8000, right? So if you go over to DRAM timing control and we go all the way up, sorry for that. If you go over to memory presets, there's a bunch of presets here for like, you know, a lot of configurations, even like 4 sticks, which doesn't even make sense. And there's also 8400 megahertz. Unfortunately, there's only one for A die. I don't have an A die kit at the moment, even though like I obviously can do it in my M die kit, but like I don't think my CPU can do it. And I don't have an A die kit at the moment, and I thought about getting a new one, but like the prices are pretty ridiculous at the moment, so that's gonna have to wait. But if you look at the voltages it's at, they're pretty reasonable for this frequency, I gotta say. So 1.45 VDDIO, that's not too high. VDDP 1.15 is also okay, and like it's probably necessary for this type of frequency. Even 1.45 VDDIO might be too low. VDD and VDDQ 1.55, but we're running CL38, so also pretty reasonable. And besides that, you know, there's like a bunch of other stuff like core tuning configuration for gaming. This is like latency killer, so legacy would just be lower latency in IDA64. Turbo game mode, this is for disabling second CCD. Gaming adaptive CCD parker, this is like parks or other CCD. This is nice for like dual CCD CPUs. Also AI cache boost. This is like, I don't know, some AI stuff for overclocking for like X3D CPUs. GPU boost actually lets you set the CPU clock frequency manually. So that can be like nice, I guess, instead of like getting Afterburner. But something I noticed they actually did is that if we go over to Q fan configuration, right? And we go to chassis fans, we go all the way down here. There's extra flow fan Q fan control. And this is the included RAM fan. And as you can see, in the source of it, it's actually dim thermistor, which I think is just like a thermostat of the RAM. So, you know, it's not going off the CPU one, it's specifically going off the RAM temperature, which is pretty important. And I think that's really good attention to detail on this type of board. And like the rest of the BIOS is pretty much standard, you know, like in advanced, you got AMD overclocking. I didn't see anything special over here. Like it's pretty much standard, yeah, but that's it for the BIOS essentially. Alright, so one last thing before I end the video is that there's something I found really nice about this motherboard is that like, if you don't mind going in the forums, there's basically a new BIOS every week, if not every other week. And like, for example, Asus were the first one to be in the latest Agisa. So I think this support is insane. And for some people, I think this is really important. But that's pretty much it. So leave a like and a sub if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.